to Down Your Unders. Down Your Unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode 173 of the Art of War Down Under podcast. My name is Adam Camilleri, of course, as always, ad nauseum. I am joined by Scotland's current big rig, the absolute gent of this scene. I never know if it's Seipp or Seipp.
Oh, it's Seipp. The only people that get that right is Germany, because it's a German name. It was Lufthansa was the first time somebody ever pronounced it first time, and I was shocked.
Absolutely shocking. But his first name is Brian, if we didn't mention that. And he's joining us from the wilds of the Northern British Isles, I guess. But you are a native of which state of the States?
Maryland.
Nice.
And football.
I actually really want to try the crab cakes. I am a crab cake enjoyer. Thank you very much. It's a good
I'm
time.
allergic and I still eat them all the time.
How allergic are we talking? Like throat closes over, or
it's not deadly. It's just enough to be uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough that I'm going to stop eating crab.
To not be worth it. Anyway, we are here to disseminate, breakdown, and review the Thousand Suns Index as this mad lad is taking them to the World Championships of Warhammer, which you will have hopefully tuned in and enjoyed coverage of, if not attended, the weekend prior or the week prior to this episode coming out. So this is the week after, but I'm recording it 2 weeks ahead because I'm going on holiday and I'm not taking all my gear with me. But I'm joined by this wonderful luminary. And in part two, because this is Art of War Down Under, this 2-part podcast, I'm going to break down why Brian decided to jump ship over Eldar, CSM, myriad of other amazing factions, and chose to take T-Suns. We'll be unpacking that in addition to answering both your listener questions and talking about the meta of the event and some of the spicy takes therein. But Thousand Suns is the name of the game. But before we get to that, Brian, tell us about some of your affiliations. So tell us or plug anything you feel like you need to, mate.
So I'm living in Scotland, which means I'm good friends with Ennis Wilson, and so I'm a huge fan of StatCheck. So I want to give them a shout out. If you want to listen to them, they're fantastic for a lot of higher level 40k content with respect to kind of how the meta is shifting. And then of course I'm part of Team Ignite, which just took down the Coventry Super Major this weekend that I was at with Thousand Suns as well. Liam VSL
Nice.
On a tear with Chaos Space Marines, unbeatable apparently. And along with a bunch of our teammates, Vic and Dave also run the Fireside podcast, which is just kind of a more relaxed discussion of kind of how they approach tournaments and what's coming up. And I'm sure they'll be doing a podcast on covering Liam's win at Coventry pretty soon, and Vic's undefeated run of sisters as well this weekend.
Yeah, did Vic win the 2-day event and Liam won the 3-day event? Is that right? Or
so the 2-day event didn't have a playoff, so there were 3 undefeated. So Vic got second, I believe, but Liam played 8 rounds and beat Manny in the finals.
Nice.
And just
well
an
done.
incredibly impressive run. Turned me inside out during one of the rounds as well, with the pair up, unfortunately for me. That was lovely.
Rough. Well, there you go. Well, he's undefeated across 2 super majors in the UK right now, Liam VSL, but he did not take him to the World Championships. He took Death Guard, which is a whole
he's
thing
completed
to
40K.
unpack.
So he's just playing on a harder difficulty. He's completed 40K, so he's just playing on harder difficulties now.
He's restarting. Yeah, he's turned it up to Nightmare. Restarted again. We'll see if we can get him playing AdMech on Hell mode, But let's jump in and talk about the T-Suns, mate. So what is your first time you cracked open this index? And of course, it's gone through a couple of iterations, a couple of nerfs. But as it sits right now, give us your first impressions of the current state of the index.
So I kind of, I first got interested in T-Suns after Vic's run at WTC, the World Team Championships, where he took a very character-heavy base list of lots of Rubric Marines, and it was an incredibly impressive army. And after the latest balanced data slate, they shaved off about 200 points of that. So you lost a couple characters, which we'll get into why that's a bit, of a downgrade. I mean, I thought at the time Vic played it was probably the second best army in the game.
Yep.
Behind Eldar, because they were, Eldar. But although I felt like they had a good matchup in Eldar, interestingly enough. Losing 200 points hurt, but actually, and we'll get into this again a little later, one of the biggest changes that really, really hurt them was the change to free stratagems. And so they've gone from kind of the second best army in the game to a lot of people discounting them, but I actually think that's kind of unfair. I think there's still a lot of juice in that army, and I think similar to, as I said, for WC, a little bit of spoilers, there's some good matchups in the meta.
Yeah, I do. I strongly believe right pilot, right list. They have a really good play into the majority of the best armies in the game at the moment. And you say that perfectly in your first sentence. Very hero heavy. They are the hero hammer faction of the game at the moment, usually eclipsing the 1,000-point mark with HQs, if not the 1,100 or 1,200 point mark, which is a crazy thing to think in the way the game is played at the moment, where you need so many units able to do any myriad of so many things per turn. Actions, getting on objectives, deep striking certain ways and points and places. But the fact is that if you position yourself well enough and take the right units, you can do just about all of that with the most basic of Dusty Boys. It's quite impressive to see it happen on the table. But we're going to jump into the detachment, so the army rule, which is the Cabal Sorcerers. This essentially, if you've traveled with us through 9th edition, it's very similar to where they left off. This is an internal resource mechanic akin to, I guess, Fate Dice or Miracle Die similar, but these are Cabal points. And instead of them being generated at the start of the game, they're generated at the top of every command phase for your own command phase. And you generate them equivalent to how many psychers and what they contribute throughout the game. It's all denoted on the data sheets. But that creates your pool of Cabal points. And then, of course, you can expend those to do things throughout the turn, throughout the battle round, etc. Before we jump in and break down what each of these options are, because there's 5 of them, is this a good mechanic, mate? Is this a good thing for the faction? And does it work as intended?
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly interesting and cool mechanic. It requires you to kind of resource manage without too much bookkeeping throughout the game, which is kind of an ideal way to handle that kind of a tool. And some of the very subtle things they've done here have really helped clamp it down so the economy doesn't get out of control. If you want to say the kind of Cabal point economy, for example, specifically. They exclude battle shock models, and also it happens. You actually accumulate your points at the end of the command phase, which will come up with one of the enhancements later, which is pretty important. So that's after you've also generated or done all your battle shock tests, and things like people in transports don't get affected either or generate Cabal points. So what you're exposing and what you're not is a constant decision tree that you
Exactly right.
have to navigate.
All right, there are 5 of these. We're going to jump into the first one, Weaver of Fate, which is 2 Cabal points. They all have the Psychic. They all have Psychic in brackets next to them. I find that completely unnecessary, but here we are. Use this ritual at the start of any phase. Once during that phase, when a saving throw is failed for a friendly Thousand Suns model whose unit is within 18 of this Psyker, you can re-roll as that saving throw. Seems pretty good. Seems not too bad. I mean, I wouldn't be expending it for anything less than it's going to lose me a primary or something like that. And if it's the last damn roll that I need to make for the unit. But having this feels pretty good. Is this something you use often?
Yeah, so a lot of times, because all of these, there's no 1 point Cabal ritual, so a lot of times you'll be left with 3 or 4 Cabal points, and there's nothing that's less than this, and this is 2. So it can usually you're a situation where almost every single turn I will activate this. A couple things that are really important though is it only works on your wizards or psychers. You can't use it to save a regular old Dusty Boy like a regular Rubric Marine. And also you kind of have to call your shot at the beginning of the phase, where one of your wizards says some friendly wizards nearby me get to use this reroll. And so your positioning and kind of picking somebody who's relatively central is pretty important, or where you think you might need it. A lot of times you'll find you'll use it on something big like Magnus, but sometimes using it on a sergeant can keep a squad alive, which is pretty cool.
Exactly right. All right, tell us about the next one.
So the next one is Temporal Surge. Also psychic keyword for some reason. So this is 5 Cabal points. And this one is incredible. So you use this at the start of your shooting phase. You select a Thousand Suns unit within 18 inches of the wizard that wants to use the ability. And unless you're locked up in combat, you got to make a normal move. You can't charge, but you can do some really funky things with this. So first off, every time you complete a normal move, you can get on transport if you want to. So you can move your guys out, do something. We'll get to that in a minute, and then use this ability to then get back inside your transport to be safe. It's almost like a fire invade. You could use it to move around a corner. You could deep strike a unit Like say you have a bunch of Terminators, you could deep strike them down. You don't have an angle to shoot something, and then suddenly you got to use this ability to move 5 inches and see the people you want to see. This ability basically makes it so Thousand Suns can hit and kill anything they want in the game, anywhere on the board,
Mm.
which
This
is kind of phenomenal.
this is such an enabler for the army to work because it has such few data sheets. It needs something like this to take ordinary things and make them work akin to a unit with a jump hack. Just for the most basics of examples. Without this, you are such a slow, static army. It's quite poor. This is I think the one true activator of the army. It makes everything work in my mind.
It is pretty wild.
Next. It is 5 cabal points, if we did not mention that. Next one is Echoes of the Warp. This is 6 cabal points. Use this ritual at the start of any phase. Once this phase, you can select this Psyker's unit as the target of a stratagem for 0 CP, and if you've already used this stratagem this phase. Now, is this something that has been changed and altered in its form to only work on battle tactics?
Yeah, it has, which is big when we get to the strats. One of the more expensive ones isn't a battle tactic anymore, but there's still some good battle tactics to use for this, and being able to use it twice is a pretty cool ability. You're not using it as often as you used to, but it's still pretty useful.
Excellent. What's next? Doombolt's next. Jeez. Off you go.
Doombolt. So Doombolt is used at the start of the shooting phase. Importantly, you get to choose the order of doing things like that. So like Temporal Surge, you could Surge and then Doombolt, or Doombolt and then Surge. And you select an enemy unit within 18 inches invisible to the wizard. You roll d6, and then on a 1, they take d3 mortal wounds. On a 2 to 5, they take d3 plus 3 mortal wounds. And on a 6, you got to just Thanos snap them and do d3 plus 6 mortal wounds.
Absolutely wild. So
yeah,
vast majority of the time you're doing approximately 5 mortal wounds, yeah?
Yeah, unless you're me, then you do 4. But most average humans do 5 mortal wounds on average.
Average humans.
And importantly, they're mortal wounds still. They're not devastating wounds, which means they roll over.
Yes.
It's one of there's not too many mortal wound mechanics in the game still, especially at this level. So this is really good at taking out a lot of chaff units and stuff like that. And it also doesn't get blocked by things like Lone Op. So you can catch people out sometimes if they're trying to keep their character out in the middle and can't be shot, and just come out and mind blast them away.
Really, really cool. Also, I love the fact that it still does something on a 1. Like on a 1, it still does something, and not only does it still do something, it doesn't hurt you. Like usually on a 1, you take d3 mortal wounds, but instead on a 1, it still does something. It still does a little bit of what you wanted it to do. I think that's a huge, and I've seen people just praising high heavens when their doom balls pop off and just absolutely clean up. Last one is Twists of Fate. This is 9 cabal points. Doombolt was 7, by the way. Use this ritual at the start of any phase. Select one enemy within 18 of invisible to this Psyker. To the end of the phase, armor saving throws cannot be made for models in that unit. My Deathwing Knights do not like this one. Not a fan.
Yeah, it's a really strong ability. I think this is one of the abilities which sometimes newer Thousands players can actually fall into a trap of using too often.
Yeah.
Because it's 9 cabal points instead of 7. You could be doom bolting instead. So you really have to ask yourself, how much value are you getting out of turning off a save if they have, for example, invuln saves? If somebody has a 2-up save and most of your weapons spoilers are going to be AP 1 or higher in this army, how much of an advantage you're really gaining by taking them from 3s to 4s? It might be worth it. But it might be worth it just instead to not give them a save at all for a couple models and get more value out of that. So the kind of analysis is important. But sometimes this is absolutely game breaking. For example, there's this unit in the game that people play. I don't know if you've heard of it, called Wraithguard, but they don't have an invuln save. So being able to flick off their save and then suddenly they just collapse to pistols. Pretty impressive.
I also love that this. Well, funnily enough, one of the best things I've ever seen done for this is using small investments of resources to punch up phenomenally. Like 1-2 units of rubrics who would never would actually legitimately struggle to kill some units that just are basic things used to hold objectives, and all of a sudden 9 cabal points, those things now do an absolutely hellacious job of whatever you want. Like I've seen units like Hearthguard for Votan just absolutely vaporized. It can be really, really, really sick. But those are your 5. You go.
Don't even discount just using it on regular 5-man infiltrator squad or something. Suddenly, as you said, kind of like an afterthought gun, like a Rhino can pick up an entire squad.
Oh, dude, exactly right. And then all of a sudden, you didn't need to disembark. You didn't need to do a bunch of stuff. You just So, spend your cabal points rather than spending your models is
Exactly.
another way of looking at it like that. But yeah, absolutely, all 5 of these are relatively good, and naturally they do get a lot better as you go down. But for me, Temple Surge is the best one here. That is the bread and butter.
Yeah, for
Don't know
sure.
if you agree though.
Yeah, it's what makes the army. When I approach every game, it's so hard to tell because you'll see this army is really complicated. Well, complicated in the sense of trying to help your opponent understand the different lines you can do.
Hmm.
That I approach every time I start the game. I'll tell my opponent, "Hey, look, I can hit you anywhere you want. Anywhere on the board I want to hit you, I will be
Yep,
able to attack you." And it's because of that Cabal strategy, Cabal ritual.
exactly right. All right, we're up to the detachment rule, which is the cult of magic detachment. Kindred sorcery. Tell us a story here, mate. How does this work?
So this is a army-wide ability that you get to pick, and it will affect all of your psychic weapons in your army, which is most of the weapons, except for the kind of the mundane ones that Marines generally carry. And this is an effect that will apply to all of those things, so all your wizards. Um, and so you can either choose lethal hits, sustained hits one, or devastating wounds. Three incredible abilities in the game that are useful in different use cases.
Mhm.
The lethal hits, I think, is one which is less often taken, but devastating wounds and sustained hits are both incredibly good.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose sustained hits. Did you bring all flamers? I guess sustained hits doesn't do anything if you brought Unga Bunga flamers in your army. But apart from that, it's everything is good here. And the thing is, you can chop and change, yeah, or is it just
Yeah,
you can
every single turn you can pick a new ability. You just pick it in your command phase.
crazy good, crazy good. I'm a
It's
fan of
really
that, and I
strong.
think that is it shows some good change powers for Zinch's fun boys.
Yeah, for
All right,
sure.
moving on. Sorry, which one? Which just quickly off the top, which one do you find yourself in the most? Like spending your games in the most?
It's usually devastating wounds because importantly, it
Yeah.
works on all psychic weapons, which includes combat. But Thousand Sons are an army which really benefits from being able to think about what your turn and your next turn is really going to look like. And so when you go into a turn and you know you're going to be turning off armor saves or hitting guys that maybe don't that are going to be on their invuln saves,
Mhm.
then you maybe switch from devastating wounds to sustained hits just for a little bit of value.
Easy done. All right, jumping down to the stratagems, the first of which is Psychic Dominion. I will point out there's only one battle tactic strat in this 6 pack of strats, unfortunately, which is we'll get to in a minute. It's Devastating Sorcery, but this is an epic deed strat, Psychic Dominion 1 CP. It's used in any phase just after the enemy unit has selected its targets. 1,000 suns unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of those units attacks. I love that line. Until the end of the phase, all attacks made against your unit with psychic weapons have the hazardous ability, and all models in your unit have a feel no pain 4+ ability against psychic attacks. This seems extremely niche. Most likely, you're going to be slapping this down ad nauseum in the mirror match. But apart from that, it seems really pigeonholed. How do you feel about it?
I thought the same way initially, but I actually found myself using it more often than I expected. So obviously, you have the mirror match, which just stratagem makes it extremely strange. But you can use it in Grey Knights. It's
Yep.
incredibly good against all those Terminators, for example. Um, and an important use case which will come up often is the Yinkarn's Flamer is psychic.
Ooh.
And so being able to use that makes the Flamer do almost no damage into your Rubric Marines,
Mm.
which can be huge for minimizing the impact that has on the game.
And then once every now and then, the Incarn takes a couple of mortal
Yeah,
wounds, and
I
you
mean,
just have a little
a boy can
chuckle.
dream. Yeah.
Yeah, boy, good dream. All right, tell us about the next strat.
So I don't have an order for me, so but I'll do
It's
that was
Destined by
Devastating
Fate.
Source. Death by Fate. Excellent. Thank you. So Destined by Fate is 1 CP, Epic Deed, any phase after a saving throw has failed for one of your wizards, and just your wizards, not the little dusty boys. That Psyker model can change the damage characteristic to 0. Um,
Magnus's best friend, as far as I can
yeah,
tell.
it's incredibly strong. You get all the information. You get to know that you failed to save, um, and when you actually use the CP, and importantly, that comes after. So you use the Cabal Ritual to re-roll a save. So you can roll a
Mhm.
save, re-roll a save, go, oh, I still failed it. I'm going to turn to 0. Sorry. Um, it can make things really hard to kill. Obviously, it's really good on something like Magnus against these giant damage attacks, but sometimes it's enough to keep your sergeants alive in your squads, which can be a big difference maker once we get the Rubric Marines.
Agreed. I do like this strat quite a lot. I think it's very handy. Even with stuff like rhinos, like just keeping a rhino alive 1 turn longer can be
Unfortunately,
all
it
the
doesn't
difference
it
as
doesn't
well.
work on rhinos. It only works on actual wizards.
Oh, Psychers. Good catch, mate. Keep me honest. Devastating Sorcery is up next. Like I said, the only battle tactic stratagem in this 6-pack. It is 1 CP. It's in your shooting phase. 1,000 Sun Psychic unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. To the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a psychic attack, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. Now, this comes in very key with an enhancement that's coming up, Arcane Vortex, that really makes it pop off. But this is still just a very good strat, straight up and down, yeah?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is it's one of the bread and butter strats that I think you'll find that is typically used because you use so many different psychic weapons, and when you get the Magnus, giving them the ability to reroll and maybe fish for those devastating wounds that we talked about earlier is really powerful. It can only be used in the shooting phase, which is unfortunate. I would love to use it in combat, but still really good. So yeah, absolutely, it's an incredible strategy. And being a battle tactic, it's the one that you typically use for a free strat, which is nice. So doing this twice is pretty powerful.
Yeah. Ensorcelled Infusion is up next. Tell us the story, mate.
So this is a 1 CP strat using your shooting phase. You pick a Psyker unit from your army that hasn't been selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, all the special Thousand Suns bolt guns, Inferno weapons, become psychic and have an extra strength characteristic on up to 5. So that synergizes with a lot of elements in the game. So, for example, that strategy we just talked about with the full rerolls of hit and wound, that means that you get a reroll hit and wounds there. That means they get devastating wounds or sustained hits or lethal hits, or whatever you picked. It'll synergize with the Magnets when we get to him. It's a lot of ways where you suddenly turn like maybe a 10-man Rubric squad or a Terminator brick into this unit that is just pumping out damage in an incredible way.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's an amazing piece of jank. It stitches a lot of other things together in order to just activate a lot of different bits of your army. All right, next up, Sorcerous Might for 1 TP. In your shooting phase, 1,000 Sun Psychic unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. To the end of the phase, add 9 to the range of psychic weapons equipped by models in your unit. Just you could spend 1 CP, couldn't you? And no matter what weapons they've got, they're now psychic and get plus strength, and then 1 CP, you got 9 more inches of range. That sounds pretty cute.
Yeah, it's great with bolters, getting a little bit of extra range. It has a couple interesting breakpoints on the range. For example, some psychic weapons are 18 inches, other ones are 12 inches. If you add 9 to the range, then suddenly you're going up to 19 inches on those 12-inch guns, which can be a great breakpoint for being able to, after a double move, maybe get out of range of somebody's threat range or turn a corner slightly. So the extra 9 inches definitely comes up, and then of course Magnus's guns are usually 24. You go up to 33. That's quite a bit of a distance, so it's hard to hide from him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I left the best for last for you, mate. Warp Sight.
Warp Sight is incredible. So 2 CP in your shooting phase. You pick a wizard in your army and one enemy unit that wizard can see. Until the end of the phase, each time a wizard in your army makes an attack with a psychic weapon that targets the enemy unit, all of those attacks have indirect and ignore cover. That is bananas.
Absolutely. I mean, you're paying for it. You're paying the privilege for it, and 2 CP is a rough price point, but is absolutely money. Essentially, this is sacrificing 1 unit to kill no matter what unit. So they could be their best unit, your worst unit. As long as it's a psycho, you'll activate the entire rest of your army and then just dunk at them from safety. I think this is incredible strat. Is this the strat that you tell people about and don't use that often, or is this the strat that you use like every single game?
I find I'll typically use it maybe once a game. The fact that you do have to, I mean, this strat kind of works in a way I think indirect should, which is you have to kind of expose a unit to see the target, which is nice. You kind of have some interaction there. But there are some things that make it incredible. Obviously, ignore cover is great and the indirect's great, but it's the fact that all the wizards in your army got to do this like hive mind link and just shoot into the target. I was able to use this recently where one of my wizards saw, and then I had 4 or 5 units shooting into a crisis squad behind a wall, which is something I don't have to expose all my units to do and then get hit really badly. And instead I can do it from behind a wall. It's just incredibly strong. CP, though, I don't know if you guys noticed, but all those strats are pretty good. So you're using CP a lot. So getting to CP is something you have to kind of be planning for and ready for.
Well, it's definitely a question I've got for you in part two. You know, what are your some of the tips and tricks for resource management? Because of course you have the Cabal points as well to manage in addition. And like you said, all these strats, apart from the first one, apart from Psychic Dominion, I could see using every other one of these 5 strats most games. Yeah,
Mhm.
as in, like, I can find a way and a reason to use every other one of these. All right, moving on to the enhancements. First up is Lord of Forbidden Law, Thousand Suns Psychic model only. I love that in the Thousand Suns index, they need to say Thousand Suns model only. But, you know, we have taught them that, ladies and gentlemen. Us gamers, gaming, the systems have taught them that they need to do that over the last,
That's why we can't have nice things.
Exactly right. The bearer can be selected to use a ritual, so a Cabal ritual, even if another psyker from your army has already been selected to use that ritual this phase. So does that mean that you can move 2 units twice?
Yes, it does. It means you can move 2 units twice. It means you can move the same unit twice.
Yes. Oof,
It means you
so
can Doom
spicy.
Vault twice.
Hmm.
It means you can turn off, theoretically, you could turn off 2 units armor saves. Realistically, that doesn't really happen because that's a lot of Cabal points.
Hmm.
But the being able to do something like, say, move Magnus in movement phase, move him again with a Cabal ritual, then move him a third time. Lets Magnus go from your home to objective all the way to your opponent's objective,
Yep.
in one turn if they wanted to.
You can
Which again,
really
why?
bully.
Yeah, why tell my opponents if I want to shoot you, I can.
Agreed. Do you know how many points this is off the top of your head?
I believe it's 25.
Easy done. I will just trust you. Next one is Athenian Scrolls, mate. Take it away.
So Athenian Scrolls, you pick one of your wizards, and in your command phase, if he's on the battlefield and not battle shocked, you get an extra Cabal point. It's 20 points.
Any good?
This one is generally no. This is kind of the one you don't take. But
Yep.
there are a couple key breakpoints that you really want to be able to hit um, with models on the battlefield. And this gets a little into the nitty gritty of what the army's like. I
Mm.
considered this for a while because I really wanted to have an army that was hard to interact with in the early turns because of all the indirect, and I wanted to have 14 Cabal points, and I was on 13 Cabal points. And if you just take this, you go up to 14. 14
Yep.
Cabal points is a double move and turning off an armor save, which is really good against Wraith Guard turn one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was like a very niche situation where maybe you take it, but you'll see once we get to the other two, combined with Lord of Forbidden Lore, it's like really hard to argue not to take those ones instead.
All right, Unprolific Crystal is up next. Is as it ever was, much the same as the Veil of Darkness. This thing has been unchanged for 6 years, going into its 7th year. It is a Thousand Suns model only, of course. Once per battle in your command phase, you can remove the bearer's unit from the battlefield. If you do, in the reinforcement step of your next movement phase, set that unit up back anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches horizontally away from any enemy models. So it is just a once per turn complete redeploy. So once per game complete redeploy. Pick the unit up, put it down anywhere 9 inches away. And yeah, really good. The difference between this now and previous iterations is you can move again after this, yeah?
You can't do a normal move after this because you can't do that, but you
Yeah.
can Cabal Ritual to move again, which is quite interesting. Or move twice, one might say.
So spicy. Just
Yeah.
you think your backfield's safe. rubrics are on it. Too bad.
Yeah, a lot of
Sucks
times
to be
people
you.
will try and cut like just a perfect angle with a deep strike because they can't afford to do anything else. It forces your opponent to really kind of sacrifice things to properly screen instead of trying to get cute and be conservative with units.
Agreed. All right, and that is
20 points.
20 points. Totally
One
fair
thing
for 20 points.
that's a bit of a nuance and important for this is because it happens in your command phase and the Cabal Ritual is generated at the end of the command phase. That when you do choose the crystal and use the ability, you don't generate the Cabal points for that unit that turn
For
because
that
they're not on the
unit. Yeah.
battlefield at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. They're in the Umbralific.
It's true.
All right, give us the last one, mate, which is probably the best one.
Oh yeah, Arcane Vortex. It's 15 points, so obviously the best one is the cheapest. You pick one of your wizards. Actually, just pick a Thousand Suns model, but definitely pick one of your wizards. Add one to the strength and damage characteristics of psychic weapons equipped by that model.
So I've seen debate for a long time, especially when this book first came out, about what's the best use for this. A lot of people, I mean, the most common I see is the Infernal Master. I have seen it on Exalted Sorcerers on discs before also. I think Infernal Master makes the most sense to me. What about you, mate?
Yeah, I think. I mean, just to give some example, it takes them from damage 1 to damage 2. The interactions that this has is kind of interesting. For example,
Mhm.
on the against say the Incarn, because plus damage happens after having.
After.
You actually
Yeah.
do 2 damage to the incarn with every one of these. It's a psychic weapon, which means it can be devastating wounds. It's a flamer.
Yep.
I maybe I rolled just a wee bit hot, but I sure did manage to overwatch and kill an entire unit of chosen
Oh.
with just this guy. It was pretty
Oh.
silly.
You love to see it. Nah, they deserve it. They know what they did.
That's true.
But this is possibly one of the best, I guess, suites of enhancements in any book in the game. All 4 of these are very takeable, and the fact is that you take 3 just about in every list is absurd. There are armies out there that take 0. There are many armies out there that take 0. There are armies out there that take 1 and only 1. Like, Bolt of Discipline was the only one that I was ever taking from the Gladius in the month that I was playing Marines in the Gladius. But literally, I've never not seen 3 in T-Sun's list. You just
if you could take
slap
4
them all in there.
enhancements, you would take all 4.
Some people have. Some people have tried to take 4. Really, really, really good. So your picks is Athenian, Vortex, Unbelievable Crystal in that order, or do you have a
No,
better
Lord of
tier
Forbidden Lore is a must take. The double Cabal
yeah?
will let you do some banana stuff.
Oh, apologies. Sorry, I said it the wrong. I meant the wrong ones. Said the wrong
gotcha.
one.
The scrolls is the one that unfortunately doesn't quite make the cut because one Cabal
That's right.
point is just not enough value when you have such other absurd abilities on offer.
Totally agree. That brings us to the end of the rules portion of the index. It's time to talk about spicy data sheets. And the fact of the matter is, there ain't that many. Legitimately, there is not that many data sheets. Of course, we are going to be talking about the 2 special characters because they're ubiquitous. They go in just about every list. And then I think we talk about the Infernal Master and the Exalt, and then one other HQ of your choice. And then we'll pretty much just go through the stuff and anecdotally talk about what's good, what's not. But Ahriman is first off the ranks, and he is pretty must take, right?
He's really good. The main reason you take him is he gives up 3 Cabal points.
Yes.
Which is a ton. Is the second most outside of the Crimson King himself. He has a cool ability doing +1 a wound. His output in terms of shooting is actually a little anemic. He's only got 1 shot, but his combat slaps. His combat is 3 damage. It can be devastating wounds. You can turn off armor saves. And the biggest thing he does is that once per battle, you can actually use that model to do a Cabal ritual for 0 Cabal points. So you want to turn off armor save and don't want to spend those 9 points? Easy. Do that.
It's
you want
big.
to double Doom Bolt, but you don't want to spend 14 points of Cabal? Easy. Spend 7, do free.
Question for you. Strong. If your army only has 8 Cabal points, can you still use this to spend 9 and turn off armor saves?
You sure can, because it just uses a ritual and makes it cost 0 Cabal points.
Yeah, baby. That is spicy endgame goodness. All right, let's go straight to the big lad Magnus. So, really happy. I am just glad, and I'm sure many T-Suns players out there are just glad Magnus is finally worth the damn points for the first. It feels like the first time in a while, but I don't think it's been that long. But tell us the story. Why is Magnus so good?
So Magnus has a lot of things going for him. First off, he's incredibly tanky. T11, 2+ armor save, 16 wounds. He's got great OC of 6. He's got a 4 Invuln save. Once per battle, he can choose, or once per turn at the start of the battle round, you pick an ability. He can either do an aura where everybody around him gets an extra 2-inch move. It's pretty good when you can move multiple times in a turn. And then, or he can do an ability that gives him -1 damage, which -1 damage. I don't know if anyone who's played a Redemptor Dreadnought, pretty good. It can really be a great breakpoint into a lot of things. And then he has another ability, which I don't know if anybody's ever used ever in the history of this data sheet, but at the start of your shooting phase, you select an enemy within 24 of this invisible Psyker, and then there's ranged weapons equipped by that unit have the hazardous ability. So
only time I've ever seen that used was against a unit of 10 Desolators who had a lot. I'm gonna make that unit kill itself trying to kill my Rubrics on the other side of the table. But sorry, continue, mate.
So he's got great combat, 7 attacks at a high strength, high AP, damage 3, or a ton of sweep attacks at damage 1. But the real thing he has is 4 Cabal points, and great ranged weapons. So his ranged weapons are two guns, 24 inches, both psychic. The first one is Gaze of Magnus, where he just gives you the death stare, kind of like a photon character. 3d3 shots, hits on twos, strength 9, AP2, 3 damage, devastating wounds. And Zinja's Firestorm, 24 inches as well. D6 plus 3 shots, blast. Hits on twos, strength 5, AP1, 2 damage. Now on the surface, you go AP2, AP1. I don't know, it's not seem great, but you combine that with the fact that A, they become devastating wounds. B, you can re-roll those to fish for devastating wounds if you really want to, and C, you can turn off armor save. So strength 5, 2 damage with a bunch of shots, pretty good in the Marines if they don't have a save. Or the 3 damage shots, pretty good in the Wraith Guard if they don't have a save, even if they might be on a 3-up and cover.
Does he benefit from his own aura, or within 6 inches each time model in a psychic unit makes a psychic attack, add 1 to the hit and wounds roll?
He does benefit from his own aura, which is super strong. And then, of course, generating the 4 Cabal points, and the fact that he moves 14 inches, or 16 if you want to turn on the extra distance, is how he manages to go across the board. If you triple move him, or you double move him, he goes 32 inches. And if you triple move him, he's going 48 inches in one turn, which is kind of silly. I've definitely done that where I've captured enemy outposts from my own deployment zone because I drew the card.
My biggest thing I can tell everybody at Magnus, 440 points, he is not a drop in the ocean. He is, damn near a quarter of your army. But he is a platform and a chassis that benefits from 80% of the rules we just read out in this book. Just about every Cabal ritual, just about every stratagem, it can be used on Magnus to great effect. And that's the best thing I can say about the guy. He just makes use of the entire book on a single model. And I think that is just a beautiful place. And I wish all the Primarchs the best of luck trying to reach such lofty heights.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's really good. And I think he's almost a must-take in every list you see. He's just too efficient. Too good.
It's exactly right. How much is 10 Scarab called Terminators? I'm just going to quickly look that up.
Oh, it's like 400.
It is. It's 400, yeah?
Yeah.
430. 10 more points you can get Magnus. Magnus, infinitely better. Infinitely better, unfortunately. Even though the Scarab cults are still okay. All right. Which HQ should we look at next?
So I am a huge fan of the Infernal Master.
All right. Tell us the story, mate.
So the Infernal Master is generates 2 Cabal points, which is great. Some characters generate 1. For most of the regular characters, some generate 2. When he's leading a unit, the whole unit gets sustained hits. This can be fantastic when you're in something like, say, a Baltar squad, but it's still useful when you have some of the others weapons in your rubric squads.
Sorry to interrupt, but in addition, it frees up that unit so it gets more mileage from, say, lethal hits, from, say, the devastating wounds as well, because it still essentially has the other one of those army buffs.
Produces that need. Also, he has the ability to, once per turn, he can change one of his hit, wound, or damage rolls into an unmodified 6 after you've or saving throw, into an unmodified 6 after you've already rolled it. It's kind of like that messenger ability I'll have.
Tell us about this guy's gun, because this is essentially the buy-in, is that he has the super flamer, akin to a Flower Blightspawn, akin to a tech priest Manipulus as well, has a similar profile or claim to fame. What is this gun?
This gun is bananas. So first off, it's a flamer. There's a non-hazardous version. We're not going to talk about that because you just
we know why we're here. We know what we're here for.
Mom and I raised one, so we're gonna do the Screamer Invocation Focus Witchfire. It has a range of 18 inches, which as a flamer with Overwatch potential is bananas. Wait. Strong.
Sorry to back you up for a second. So you're saying for a CP you can make that 27 inches?
You sure can. Pretty good.
Disgusting.
It has 2d6 shots, strength 6, AP2, 1 damage. Now, again, you might think, the range is great, the number of shots is great. 6-2-1, it's like, okay, that's okay. But you start to really layer some of these buffs, it gets pretty out of hand. So if you have the Arcane Vortex, suddenly that becomes strength 7, AP2, 2 damage. If you have devastating wounds, then suddenly all your 6s are going to be ignoring armor saves. If you reroll hits and wounds for psychic weapons, suddenly that flamer rerolls all of its wounds. If you're near Magnus, it gets +1 to wound. It starts to really get out of control once you start to do things. And then after all of that, if one of your attacks is a 1, you flip that into a 6, get a free devastating wound.
Oh, exactly right. No matter what, you're getting some dev wounds if you're in that. I don't want to call it. What was the army rule called? Cabal something sorcerer. If you're in that something sorcerer, you're going to get some at least 2 dev wounds through. And I want to say this guy is now my current scourge of the custodies, because his dev wounds is just next level. Strength 7 plus 1 to wound. Absolutely scorching custody guard from the face of the earth. How many points does this guy run you? Is it 95?
He's 95, and then you usually stick some enhancements on him.
Yeah, exactly right. All right, next one, mate. Probably Exalted Sork or the regular Sork. Which one would you like to?
So I think probably the regular sorcerer, because I got a bunch of those on my list. So the Thousand Suns sorcerer is just a little footboy. He gives his whole unit lethal hits, which I tend to play flamers, so I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't even realize he did that. Well, that's cool. He has his main ability that that I like him for is whenever he's leading a unit, that whole unit gets blown up outside of 18 inches. So you can't target him unless the attack model is within 18 inches. And in a world of night spinners, that's necessary.
So necessary, man.
Yeah, it lets you sit on the board, generate Cabal points, which again is kind of that balance for Cabal point economy, and not get shot. Force your opponent to actually engage you, which is what Thousand Suns want. They want your opponent to fight, so you can just tape them.
And it actually has quite a relevant gun to add to
what a rubric bananas.
To add to what a rubric unit already has. So it's very complementary to what a rubric unit does. But tell us about the Fires of the Abyss. Absolute metal album cover.
Yeah, it's a 12-inch range gun, or 19 if you use a strat. It has 2d6 shots, hits on 2, strength 5, AP 1 damage. Again, same kind of buffs you can layer. And one other key rule, which is slightly important: sustain hits 3.
Man,
this thing pops off. I've definitely shot it where I've got maybe like 8 shots and then rolled like 5 6s and just had a fistful of dice, all of which can be devastating wounds, all of which can be +1 to wound, all of which can reroll. This guy can just go absolutely bananas. He's also incredibly good at overwatching because every hit becomes 4 hits.
Yep.
And it's a pistol, which means you also get to shoot his flamer pistol at the same time.
That's right. I was about to say one of the other keywords here is it's pistol. I once saw a game where a lovely gentleman got a single unit of Necron warriors into combat with 2 of these guys, two 5-man rubrics with 2 sorcerers in it. And man, the regret on his face when the guy popped off his pistols in his turn and just smashed 3/4 of the unit dead. It was hilarious to see. Just so unexpected as well.
Absolutely. It's really good. And he has another key thing, a lot of these characters that we're talking about, the grenade keyword is hard to come by in this army, but a lot of the characters tend to have it. Infernal Master and Sorcerer both have the keyword, so that's good to know.
Fantastic. All right, let's move on to the workhorses of the dustiest of dusty boys, the Rubric Marines, because this is the little engine that could. I argue, and I've also we're pretty much going to do this in part 2, because I'm going to challenge myself and Brian to think of a better, more flexible battle line unit than the humble Rubric Marine. Tell us a story about these guys, mate. Why are they so good?
These guys are, first of all, their battle lines are the 2 OC, which is nice. They're only 105 points for 5 of them, which is bananas cheap. They have a core rule that says anytime they make a range attack, they get reroll wound rolls of 1. However, if you're targeting an enemy, which is on an objective marker that you don't control, then you get to reroll all the wounds. That, by the way, transfers over to any characters that they might be leading as well. They get to take an Icon of Flame, so every time they roll a 6 to wound, or a critical wound, they get to improve the AP by 1. And then they get some really cool weapons. This unit, if you ever played against it, I'm sure you felt like your opponent is just rolling a million attacks because they just have a million guns. The Sergeant has 2 little mine lasers called Warp Smite, 2 attacks, range 18 inches, anti-infantry 4, dev wounds. It's a pistol, it's psychic, strength 4, AP 3. So that's great already. We haven't even gotten to his second gun, which is a flamer pistol. D6 shots, strength 3, AP 1 damage. The other options you can take with the unit are a warp flamer, which is what I tend to take because I want to be close to people. And it ignores cover. It's a flamer, 12-inch range, torrent, D6 shots, strength 4, AP 1 damage.
The fact
Sorry.
Sorry, mate. The fact that your basic bees, your basic troops can each have a flamer with that auto hits with ignores cover and an AP and it's so crazy to me. But continue. I just had to interrupt because the warp flamer breaks my brain. I look at my guardsmen, and I'm like, how many guardsmen equals a warp flamer rubric marine? And it's probably more than one squad of guardsmen, to be perfectly honest. So sorry, mate. I just had to say that.
Strong. You can take the bolters. The bolters allow you to synergize well with that strat. They're just regular bolt gun, except they have an AP1 because they have magic bullets. Is what I assume is the case. And
so in addition, they're not rapid fire. They're just 2 shots of 24 inches, which is a little better than the regular one.
Yeah, that's true. Then you can take a quote unquote heavy weapon called the Soul Reaper cannon. It's like this giant chain gun that does devastating wounds, 24-inch range, 6 shots, hits on 3, strength 6, AP1, 1 damage. Yep. And all these abilities, all the flamers, all the bolters, everything, you're re-rolling wounds most of the time because your opponent needs to hold objectives to win the game. So as long as you position carefully, you can do things like put one model on the objective, flame the unit that's on the objective while they're controlling it, kill the whole unit. Now you control the objective, and you got the full rerolls.
Yeah, exactly right. I got to say, especially when you tag in the fact that you have access to devastating wounds, for army wide and rerolls to wound. These guys are just perfect made objective flipping machines. They flip objectives. Yeah, you need to hold it with a baby knight. You need a war dog on an objective to sometimes not lose it to 5 rubrics in a character.
The other thing we forgot to mention is the fact that the entire unit has a 5-up invuln save.
Yeah. Which is really funny because a lot of people complained that All Is Dust went away, which is a lot of the time was the in 2 previous editions was a +1 save against damage 1 weapons, I believe. All Is Dust, and now that's just been completely deleted. Doesn't exist anymore. But there's still for the points for 105 points. Damn, they're good.
Incredibly efficient.
So good. I mean, how much do people pay for Berserkers? I mean, I know Plague Marines. I'm talking about the cult Marines right now. Noise Marines, never heard of them. No idea what they do because no one's playing them. But Plague Marines are priced to move. They are so good for the points. And Berserkers, I'm starting to see Berserkers again, but not en masse like they are with Plague Marines and Rubrics. These guys are just bread and butter, right? This is almost your build around unit.
I mean, I'm playing 6 units in my army, so yeah, 100%.
You're a savage. You're a savage. What else should we speak to, mate? Pick another couple of data sheets, and then we'll.
We definitely should mention the Scarab Call Terminators. This is another build that people will go towards if they're not taking a ton of Rubric Marines. They'll take these Scarab Call Terminators, which are 3-wound Terminator models, T5 for invuln saves. When they are being led by a unit, they get the kind of the Warden rule where they are -1 to the wound roll if they're higher strength than their toughness. And they have a couple heavy weapons, a bunch of bolters, Soul Reaper cannon, just a kind of similar kind of warp smite that the infantry unit has. They're hard to push. If they turn off armor saves, they can be quite deadly. Typically, people will take like a Terminator character, put it in the unit, give them the crystal, then this unit can teleport, and then it can move again, and it can shoot around corners, and it can be quite strong there.
Yeah, I do agree. What's your best loadout? Do you still go the Soul Reapers and the missile racks?
Yeah, I would definitely do the missile racks. I think one thing this army sometimes can struggle with is the ability to kind of reach out and touch something really far away without committing resources, and so having the missile racks is a way to kind of do that a little bit, open up some rhinos and stuff like that.
Yeah, because am I right in thinking that you take the warp flamer and the missile racks?
You can take not the heavy warp flamer, I don't think, but I think it's a Soul Reaper. Let's see.
So one coming bolter can be placed with a heavy.
Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can take both. Yeah. If you wanted to extra flame, sure, go for it.
Yeah.
All right. Any other data sheets worth noting, mate?
Yeah. So I think probably the one that should definitely be mentioned is the Mutilix Vortex Beast. Mutilith Vortex Beast. Excuse me. This boy is something otherworldly. He's pretty. The model is incredible. don't know if you've seen it, but you should definitely check it out if you haven't.
Viable for the first time in recorded history. Just putting it
Yes,
out
and
there.
it was rare as gold before WGC.
Trash tier level, never heard of prior to this index. But tell us the story, mate.
It's real cool. It's 165 points, which for this data sheet is actually pretty cheap. It moves 10. It's T10, 13 wounds. It's got a 4-up save with a 5-up invuln, so it's got a 5-up invuln basically. But it's got a feel no pain of 5+. So that makes it pretty tanky. 13 wounds with a rerollable 5-up effectively means roughly half your wounds, half the damage you put in actually goes through. He's got a really cool ability where if you're at the end of your movement phase, every enemy unit within 6 inches, you roll dice and you start to dish out mortal wounds, kind of like what's the Tyrannic creature, the Maliceptor kind of thing, where it does this aura thing. That's great for taking away screens or making sure your opponent gets punished for trying to like really overload into something. Moving 10 inches means you can double move it as well. You can go 20 inches if you want to. One of the really cool rule it has is while Thousand Suns Wizard is within 6 inches of the model, every time you use a ritual, you can double the range. So that means you can Doom Bolt from 36 inches away.
36.
You can double move something that is 36 inches away. You can turn off a save from something 36 inches away. It suddenly makes your army, which is otherwise really close range, able to do some really quite interesting things. You could turn off a save from 36 away and then have magnets go up to 33 inches, and now suddenly you're shooting something without a save without committing anything from 33 inches away.
It has 3 ranged weapons. Is that correct?
Yes. Three versions of the same weapon. You can pick one of them. One is D6 plus 3, strength 9, AP 2 damage blast within 24. Hits on 3s. It's pretty solid.
Very nice.
Respectable. Then it has a torrent version, which is 2d6 shots, strength 6, AP 1, 12-inch range. You're not really going to take that. I don't think usually the other version will just be better in most use cases. And then it has what people like to call as an eyeball laser. One shot, hits on 3s, strength 18, -4 damage, d6 plus 6 damage.
Crazy. Seeing strength 18 on a non-Titan weapon, on a non-Knight or Shadow Sword is pretty good.
Absolutely, it's really quite strong.
I wish it was a little bit longer range, but fair enough. And the Warp Vortex, of course, is the weakest one. The only thing to do with that is to threaten an Overwatch, I guess.
Yeah, peaceful.
But yeah. So many flamers. Who would have thought? This army was the army of flamers? On that note, we might wrap it up. But before we do, there's 2 metrics upon which we measure these indexes. The first and foremost of which is, as a Thousand Suns player, how happy are you with this index, and how happy do you think Thousand Suns players should be with this index?
I think incredibly happy. I mean, every single unit in this book, besides possibly the goat people, the Zangors, are the foot ones, is viable, is good, is worth considering taking. Even the kind of the afterthoughts of the like chaos converted over things like Helldrake, stuff like that, still kind of cool. The problem you have is you want to take it all, and that's the sign I think that an index is pretty good. If you want to take it all, and not those things you don't take.
Yeah, agreed. I think you should be. Oh, sorry. Usually we do that out of 10. Sorry, out of 10, how happy do you think people should be?
I would probably put this as 7 or 8.
Yeah. On release, I 110% agree that Thousand Suns players would be like an 8 out of 10 happy with this. They probably would have been like, they lost points because it didn't come out with some new models or anything added to the range. Right now I think it's probably a 7, and I say that just because of the lack of viability of other data sheets. It really does just seem, mate, like very much similar to your list, which we're going to unpack in a minute, that it is just, how many characters can I buy without not having enough models to play the game, and then strap them all to Rubric Marines? It doesn't seem like there's any really other viable choices. I've seen some people, take a single unit of Spawn, single unit of Enlightened, but it seems very bland unit choice wise, and I think that's the only reason it loses points. Those units still do a lot of very exciting things, and the great thing about it is like the army, the collection of army that you need is literally Control-C, Control-V, rubrics. You only need about 30 of the guys, a couple of rhinos, and then just whichever characters look cool. And your army's probably good enough.
That is true. The one thing I will mention, though, is that some of the other data sheets, things like Forge Fiends and Predators and stuff like that, become interesting because of the fact that they can double move.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why, like, I was actually, for a while there, was considering a Predator Destructor or two, taking my list, specifically because of the fact that you can do some really interesting things with, like, double moving them and getting angles and stuff that other armies might struggle with. So it's a side of things to consider. But largely you're right. It's you're taking the best data sheets, which are just pushed real hard. But I do think there is some argument for the other items.
What are you saying, mate? You're saying that the Hellbrood isn't the bee's knees. What is going on?
The Hellbrood has a cool rule, actually, which I was reading the other day. Yeah,
nothing else is cool about it, but the rule is cool.
The name's pretty sweet. It's pretty fire.
It's pretty. Anyway, on that note, mate, we're going to wrap up this part one. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed that journey through the Thousand Suns Index. I actually, every time. There are some factions in the game that I know other people, you are susceptible to a faction that you don't play it, but you look at it and you're like, ooh, maybe one day. And I always do that every time I review a Thousand Suns piece of content. I'm like, the Dusty Call is strong with this one.
Yeah, the most fun you can have with your pants on.
Oh, it's amazing. But anyway, mate, anything you'd like to plug or anyone you'd like to shout out before we check out?
No, just keep an eye on Scotland at the World Champs. See how we did. It's just Ennis, myself, and one lonely Age of Sigmar boy, but we're gonna bring home the gold, I believe.
Hell yeah, mate. All right, on that note, we are out, and dude, I know we're recording this before the World Championships, but good freaking luck, mate. I'm gonna get you to Babe Ruth your shot into the bleachers over in part 2, so hopefully you guys will join us there. See you soon. Take care. Look after yourselves.
Thank you for listening to Art of War Down Under, a content review podcast for Warhammer 40K, hosted by Adam Camilleri, produced by Seamus Ronan. Enjoyed the show? Want your lists reviewed and the content you heard put into practice? Sign up to our Patreon and connect with us online or on Facebook. Just search for Art of War Down Under. Signing out from tomorrow.